The Royal Rumble may be the best pay-per-view on the WWE calendar. While WrestleMania will always be the granddaddy of them all, it doesn't have a stipulation bout like the Royal Rumble, and here we are all these years later, and it's still kicking ass. For that very reason, though, there has been so many crazy things that have gone down every January, and that's what we gotta talk about right now. My name is Simon from What Culture. Please do hit that subscribe button, and this is the 10 most infamous WWE Royal Rumble controversies. Number 10, goodbye CM Punk in 2014. If you are a hardcore WWE fan, the 2014 Royal Rumble is like a dream for you. It is the ultimate fodder to go onto Reddit with and just go nuts. Because not only is Batista booed, the audience is just dying for Daniel Bryan to get his due, and it's the last appearance for one CM Punk. The news that came out of this. Punk was still given the Iron Man spot, lasting an impressive 49 minutes, and while it's probably down to the fact that now we know what was going to happen, you kinda get the feeling he'd rather have been anywhere else. This could have been because what was happening behind the scenes as CM knew what his future was. A loss to Triple H at WrestleMania 30. Didn't really sound like something he wanted or needed to do. So 24 hours after the pay-per-view, he went into Vince McMahon's office, said he was going home, and he did. He hasn't stepped foot in a WWE ring since, and as many said at the time, if you knew the situation, it wasn't overly shocking. Punk had given off the impression that he was done for some time. It turned out he was. Number 9, Vince thinks the Rumble is stupid in 1987. As has been made really clear since he sadly passed away, one man who definitely had the ear of Vincent Kennedy McMahon was Pat Patterson. Not afraid of speaking his mind and yet retaining the respect of the chairman, that would be a huge reason as to why the WWF and WWE reached the heights it did. He was basically a genius. If you need evidence of this, it was Patterson who came up with the idea for the Royal Rumble. Not bad going. Unfortunately for him, Vince thought it was one of the stupidest concepts he'd ever heard. Left unimpressed with the 12-man version in 1987, it came back around the following year when the USA wanted a network special featuring the World Wrestling Federation. So during a meeting with Vince, Pat, and NBC Bigwig Dig Episode, Patterson brought the Rumble up again. Man didn't want to hear about it, but Dick was interested and reacted right away by saying that would be awesome television due to the suspense and curiosity about who was going to enter next. Given that two of his closest allies were now in favor of it, McMahon greenlit a round 2 in 1988, and the rest we know. It's arguably the best stipulation match ever. Number 8, Brothers Don't Fight in 1993. Coming straight from the mouth of Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, a WWE executive told a story about the Steiner brothers bursting onto the scene and how everybody saw money in the two splitting up and having a sibling rivalry. Sadly, one person didn't get it, Vince McMahon. Responding to the idea that Scott could win the 93 Royal Rumble before taking on Bret Hart at WrestleMania, it would all begin thanks to a feud with Rick. This sounded bonkers to Vince thanks to 3 simple words: brothers don't fight. Yeah, more proof McMahon doesn't live on planet Earth. Bruce and Pat Patterson tried to explain that this does in fact happen all the time, but it was too late. McMahon went for Yokozuna, and Scott Steiner never really got this main event pushed under a WWE banner. Number 7, clock problems of Mil Mascaras in 1997. I've told this story before, but it's my favorite one, so I'm going to tell it again. Mil Mascaras, being the Mexican legend he was, found himself in the Royal Rumble in 1997, but also decided he didn't want anyone to throw him out of the thing, which posed a small issue because he wasn't booked to win it. Given that he wasn't going to budge, he instead took the stupid option and eliminated himself by doing a spectacular dive from the top to the outside. What a numpty, but also a hero. Always believe in yourself. 1997 all around was not smooth sailing, as WWE also had serious issues with the clock, or to be exact, the clock didn't work. It didn't even appear early on, leaving commentator Vince McMahon to inform us that they would fix it ASAP. This was also the year where Stone Cold Steve Austin snuck back in after being thrown out, and while that was part of the story, from a TV standpoint, nothing was going very smoothly. Number 6, John Madden says no in 94. WWE had an issue with color commentaries in 1994. Bobby Heenan had gone to WCW, Jerry Lawler had legal issues, so there was no choice but to give Ted DiBiase a call and ask him to come in. Thankfully, he had a price. But this was not the original plan. For you see, this was meant to be NFL commentator and video game title king John Madden. He had left CBS ready to sign a big deal with Fox, and seeing that there was a mainstream opportunity, Vince McMahon reached out and asked him if he'd like to do the job. Assuming he would agree, no backup idea was put in place, so when Madden decided against it, WWE were in a pickle. As Bruce Pritchard would tell us on his podcast, while Ted was fine in rehearsal, no one was that impressed with him during the 3-hour show. Number 5, the USOS car rental in 2015. This was like the older days of wrestling rearing their head again, and even now it's kinda nuts. But after the USOS had worked a match at the Royal Rumble against the Miz and Damien Mizdow, Jimmy J and Naomi jumped in a car to go to their hotel. This is all normal. What is not is what happened during the drive. As they were ready to pull away, a nuts fan with a chair smashed the back of their rental car before running away. What the hell is wrong with you? Talking about this on Chad Duke's podcast in 2015, the extra kicker was that the former tag team champions didn't have the necessary insurance to cover this, so this so-called fan just cost them money. Short PSA here, don't do this, it's weird and makes you a strange person. Just enjoy the wrestling. Number 4, MAVEN gets drunk in 2002. I still don't believe this, even though it comes from MAVEN's own mouth. It's just so unreal. But talking with Fightful in 2019, the man himself admitted that despite being booked to dropkick The Undertaker out of the Royal Rumble, he wasn't exactly sober. Here's the story. Wanting to ensure the blood would flow during the post-elimination attack, the dead man mentioned to MAVEN he should take an aspirin to thin things out. Sadly, MAVEN was allergic to such pills, so Taker went old school and gave the tough enough winner some whiskey. He had so many by the time it was go to the ring, MAVEN wasn't sober. Thankfully, it did all go okay, which proves living in the moment sometimes can help, but still, can you imagine if this had gone wrong? I bet Mr. Mark Calloway wouldn't have been a pleased pup. Number 3, Hulk Hogan's Tantrum in 1992. If we are to believe Sid Justice, and I ain't going to argue with him, Hulk Hogan threw a massive tantrum at the 92 Royal Rumble. Talking to Sean Mooney though, Sid claimed after the match Hogan yelled at Vince McMahon for the way things had gone down, and also blamed Justice for all of it. Apparently Sid then calmly said he wasn't going to be in a company where grown men act like women, which for the record, yes, is sexist and offensive, but he said it, so I'm just throwing it in there. The man who ruled the world did hang around long enough to work with Hulk at WrestleMania 8, and I wonder why. And I suppose all of this could have come down to the fact that the Hulkster wasn't booked to win the thing. That did always seem to be a sticking point. Given that many people say that this is the best Rumble of all time though, maybe it's just best to focus on that. I mean, come on. Who didn't shed a tear when Ric Flair was victorious? We know the Nature Boy did. Kind of happens every day. Number 2, Vince clears the locker room in 2005. We all know the deal here. John Cena and Batista screwed up at the 2005 Royal Rumble and fell out the ring at the same time, even though they weren't meant to. McMahon then stormed to the ring to try and sort this mess and pulled both his quads in the process. It is just crazy. The thing is, it could have been avoided. If then general managers Eric Bischoff or Teddy Long hadn't have left the building early, surely they would have been sent out instead. But at least when it comes to Wrestler Edge, he's kind of glad this didn't happen. Speaking during a Q&A session, as Vince returned to the back, he demanded everyone clear the hell out of there so he could survey the damage in peace. Probably also didn't want anyone to see him looking like this. Vince being Vince still hobbled to his limo rather than call an ambulance or a local medical facility wagon, and as you've already figured out, he wasn't very happy with two people, namely Teddy Long or Eric Bischoff, because as stated, they had bolted early. So a little lesson for all you would-be WWE superstars out there, make sure you stay until the main event is done. Number 1, Brock Lesnar and the Bro in 2020. Matt Riddle is a pretty polarizing guy. He's already clashed heads with Bill Goldberg, but he's also had a run-in with none other than Brock Lesnar before the 2020 Royal Rumble. Amazingly too, it was the Beast who kicked this off when he calmly approached the Bro, put his hand on his shoulder and let him know in no uncertain terms he was never gonna work with him ever. Shucks. Sparked off by Riddle continually talking about Lesnar in the press, Brock just wanted to make it clear that because of that, the two would never do business. Riddle being Riddle took all this in his stride and even tried to sort things out with Brock. I doubt that it worked. After all, there may have been some reasoning to the fact that Riddle entered the Rumble that year long after Brock had been eliminated by Drew McIntyre. If he hadn't have done, Brock Lesnar may have eaten Matt Riddle and crapped him out in the middle of the match, and we would have all just had to applauded, because you just never know what the Beast is gonna do. Know of any other infamous WWE Royal Rumble controversies? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe. It's against the law if you don't. That's not true. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Siren from What Culture. I love talking to you when I can, so I'll do it again very, very soon.